Hello, I'm Sam Walters, the Artistic Director of the Orange Street Theatre, and I suppose the founder. We started nearly 40 years ago. Last day of December 1971 was our first lunchtime performance, and we were 20 years in the pub that's behind me over the road, and we've been 20 years in our new theatre. We began by doing lunchtime theatre, and we began by doing our first performance by daylight because the room was surrounded by windows on three sides. And I think the fact that we did the first play like that, unbeknown to me, led inevitably to us developing into a theatre in the round, where the audience were formed in a very important part of the whole experience. For the first 3 years we did lunchtime theatre, and then Young's Brewery did the pub up, and in 1975 we started doing evening theatre. And really right from the very word go, it was clear that we were at the right time in the right place. So many people arrived for the first performance that we had to do it twice, and we sent a second audience down into the bar to have a drink while they waited for the second performance, and we were off to an auspicious start. And throughout the 70s the theatre developed and grew and added community work to the evening productions we were now doing in the second half of the 70s. And hanging already in front of my nose was a carrot that there might be a new theatre able to be built on the site where it is now, which was in a school that closed in 1974 just across the road from where we were functioning. And we were ultimately, 14 years later, when the development got underway, we became a planning game, and the shell of this theatre was built by the developers. And by then we knew well that we wanted to be a theatre in the round. So the shell which they contributed cost about £1 million in those days of money, and we raised pre-lottery £800,000 to do it up, and created London's only permanent full-time theatre in the round, where we do quite a broad cross-section of plays. Two distinguished and very nice critics have called us a pocket national theatre, because I think our programme is quite broad. So we will do new plays, of course, every theatre ought to be doing new plays, but we will also do rediscoveries, foreign plays, musicals occasionally, and the occasional well-known classic, if I can find an excuse for doing it. In choosing the season to represent our 40th anniversary, I wanted to celebrate, in a way, aspects of the work that have been important to us over the 4 decades of our existence. And we open with a play by Václav Havel, The Conspirators, actually written, oddly, 40 years ago. It was the first play of his that he wrote after the Russian invasion of 1968, which led to him being a banned playwright, having had his initial plays done during the Prague Spring in the late 60s. But The Conspirators was never done, in Czechoslovakia until it was done in the early 90s. But instead of being a banned dissident playwright, he was now the president. And it's a very apt play because it's actually about a fragile democracy in a time after there's been a revolution getting rid of a dictator. And we have recently had some revolutions that are getting rid of or trying to get rid of dictators, and democracy is being set up. So it suddenly has a relevance that perhaps they didn't have even when he wrote it in 1971. We've had a relationship with his plays since 1977, when we first did his work, and in fact we've had a continual relationship with him throughout the 80s and 90s and into this century, and we were very pleased to do the first production outside Prague of Leaving in 2008, which was the first play he had written since he was thrust into politics in 1989. But we follow that play with a new play written by David Lewis. David Lewis is a playwright whose plays we've done over the last 12 years or so. We've done 6 of his plays, and it's something that I think that also indicates an area of our work that we sometimes continue with a playwright. Obviously, occasionally we do a writer's work and then do a second play, but with Martin Crimp in the 80s and with David Lewis in the 90s and this century, we've done his second play, his third play, his fourth play, and been a home for the playwright. And then the third play is Next Time I'll Sing to You by James Saunders. James Saunders is an unjustly overlooked playwright, and was very important to us, not only as a writer, but as a friend, a person, a mentor. He lived here. The Orange Tree became his home. We've done over 20 of his plays over the years, and he's not with us anymore, alas, but we did his last play, Retreat, in the mid-1990s, and it was absolutely essential that a play of his was in our 40th season, and we're doing Next Time I'll Sing to You, which was the first play of his that really caught public's attention in the 1960s. And then we do one of our Edwardian revivals. We found that the late Victorian Edwardian seam of plays, because it was after all a time of great change, impending change in the world, Labour Party being formed, suffragettes chaining themselves to railings outside Buckingham Palace and 10 Downing Street, and the First World War on the way, and the Russian Revolution, and underneath the surface of plays written before all that happened, or while some of it was happening. It wasn't just Ibsen and Chekhov and Strindberg and Shaw writing, but there were many other playwrights, and we've dug around and discovered a number of them. And the Christmas play is The Charity That Began at Home by St. John Hankin. Two of his plays we've already done. And after Christmas we will be looking at more plays that I hope will be seen as representative of our work. We have a new play by Martin Crimp, I'm delighted to say, and we're going to be doing a play by Alan Monkhouse, one of whose plays we did last year, a 1908 play. He's a former drama critic of The Guardian, in fact, and a journalist on The Guardian, and one of the Annie Horniman's Manchester School of Playwrights. So having done one play of his last season, Mary Broom, it seemed a good idea to follow it up with another one immediately, and we're doing The Conquering Hero, which is a wonderful play about the First World War and pacifism and the reaction to the war, perhaps overshadowed in its time by the success of Journey's End, but well worth the visit. And I still have at least 2 plays to decide upon.